Sects, which were often bitterly opposed to each other. Yet Christ had said, "By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples."
He's going to be speaking tonight about multiculturalism. So we have someone who is starting off, I think, with a prayer. Service.
Not only so, but each had become split up by division after division into an increasing number of sects, which were often bitterly opposed to each other. Yet Christ had said, "By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if ye have love one to another." And Mohammed had said, "This your religion is the one religion. To you hath God prescribed the faith which he commanded unto Noah, and which we have revealed unto thee, and which we commanded unto Abraham and Moses and Jesus, saying, Observe this faith, and be not divided to sects therein." The founder of every one of the great religions had called his followers to love and unity, but in each case the aim of the founder was to a large extent lost sight of in the wealth of intolerance and bigotry, formalism and hypocrisy, corruption and misrepresentation, schism and contention. The aggregate number of more or less hostile sects in the world was probably greater at the commencement of the Baha'i era than at any previous period in human history. It seems as if humanity at that time were experimenting with every possible kind of religious belief, with every possible sort of ritual and ceremonial observance, with every possible variety of moral code. At the same time, an increasing number of men were devoting their energies to fearless investigation and critical examination of the laws of nature and the foundations of belief. New scientific knowledge was being rapidly acquired, and new solutions were being found for many of the problems of life. The development of inventions such as steamship and railway, postal system and press greatly aided the diffusion of ideas and the fertilizing contact of widely different types of thought and life. The so-called conflict between religion and science became a fierce battle. In the Christian world, biblical criticism combined with physical science to dispute and to some extent to refute the authority of the Bible, an authority that for centuries had been the generally accepted basis of belief. A rapidly increasing proportion of the population became skeptical about the teachings of the churches. A large number even of religious priests secretly and openly entertained doubts and reservations regarding the creeds adhered to by their respective denominations. This ferment and flux of opinion, with increasing recognition of the inadequacy of the old orthodoxies and dogmas, and groping and striving after further knowledge and understanding, were not confined to Christian countries, but were manifest, more or less, and in different forms, among the people of all countries and religions.
There is a library set up on the table over here, so if anyone would like further information.
Okay, this is great. I would like to say good evening to everybody. I finally found out today why I'm here in Fort Wayne. And because I had this on my calendar for quite some time now, and it was really a mystery to me, and none of the famed people, mentioned it, and I just couldn't quite figure it out. I did ask one of the people that from this organization called Fame, why they had asked me to come, and they said, well, somebody mentioned, that maybe you could contribute something to the programs in the schools here. but I never found out who that was till today. And it's about 8 years ago, I and a group of about 5 or 6 people from Alaska and Canada and the United States went down to Cali, Colombia. And we went down to a very, there's a very wonderful Baha'i community in Cali that has a lot of development activities going on in terms of just education and spiritual empowerment of the communities down around Cali. And several of the Baha'is there in Cali were and are working at this school. It's a real nice school. It's called Colegio Bolivar. And on one of the days of our trip there, I went at the behest of one of the workers, one of the employees there to the school, and we did a program for the kids. And it was really a nice, beautiful student body. And so I did that, was in the middle of my program there, and a big, there's a big commotion. And to me it sounded like a whole fleet after fleet of helicopters were going over the top of the building. And it was so deafening, and in between the fleets going over, and I kind of hollered at the person in the back of the room. I says, "What's going on? Is there an invasion here or something?" And she went like that. And she quickly held up a sign. She says, "Stall the students while we evacuate." And so I said, "Oh, all right." Meanwhile, these helicopters had landed just not too far away, and there was just thousands of rounds of submachine gun fire going off in the meantime. So it's kind of hard to talk. And just about that time, they pulled these buses and came screeching up, and they threw all the kids in there and took off. And they were having a coup that day. And so we went back into Cali, and we spent the rest of the day on the floor of this house. But there was really bullets flying all over in that area. But anyway, so it was an exciting time. But I just found out today that one of the administrators there at the school there is employed at the Canterbury School here, and she was the one that had asked me to come. So that was an interesting discovery today. So that's why I'm in Fort Wayne. And all these things kind of come back together, you know. What goes around comes around, or whatever. So that's interesting. Anyway, that's what I find. But it wasn't really surprising to me because more and more, this is what's happening in the world today. The world is just being caught up in this incredible forces that are just pulsating. And Baha'is believe that this is the most exciting and dynamic. And unless you have some understanding what's happening, the most confusing and perplexing and baffling period in human history. Because I will get into that later. All right. And let me do what I was asked to do first. I like to be obedient. So I'll play a song here, and I'll dedicate this song to everybody here. I've been going to the schools around all week, and I've visited with probably about 1,500 kids a day, I think, on the average in the area. So it's really a privilege for me to be able to share with all of them. And I have the least goal that I have is to indoctrinate or to try to indoctrinate or convert anybody over to any type of a cultural background that I might have or present. The sole motive that I have here is I like to have fun. No, I enjoy doing that, but it's really fun. But what I'm trying to do is really to convey a positive awareness of the oneness of humanity and the need to really be able to appreciate the time that we're in now and all this wonderful era in which all peoples are able to really see each other and to begin to interact. And so this is really the main theme that I have, and through music and through dance and storytelling I try to develop different facets of that theme for the young people. And one of the things I like to do is to use these instruments here. These are instruments, I've got several of them that are from different parts of North America, and this is one of the most basic instruments that all people really have some form of wind instrument. And here in North America there's a very old and very beautiful tradition of usage of the wind instrument, and it's very in depth, and there's so much to it. But I was telling the young people that on the flute we use these 6 holes here. There's 6 holes, and these actually with these 6 holes, what we do is we create music, but we incorporate actually 7 notes. And these 7 notes represent all of the directions in this creation. They symbolize all the powers in the universe. Just symbolically represent that. So here we have the heavens and the earth, and then the 4 directions in between. The 4 cardinal directions. And I've been telling, there's a lot of stories that I've tried to introduce that amplify that thought. But I tell them that these directions are very important, the heavens and the earth and all the 4 directions. But really, when we play the flute, we use the 7 notes. And the 7th one is very important. It's the most important because, all of these directions, they all focus, they all converge, they all intersect some place. And that place where they all converge, of course, is right within each one of us. That is the 7th direction, right within each one of us. And this is a very, very important concept, because this is the a lot of times when I this consciousness of the environment and everything, they quit asking me to talk, because I always tell them, from an Indian point of view, they always ask, tell us about the sacredness of the land and everything. So I tell them quite bluntly, quite honestly, I tell them, there's everything out here is very beautiful, like the forest and everything. But I have to tell you, this is what I usually tell them, I have to tell you that really there's nothing that's sacred out here. All of the skies and the sun and the stars and the moon, it's all beautiful, but it's not sacred. All the land and all the trees and all the animal and all the medicines, all the water that flows and everything that is beneath the earth, beneath the surface of the waters, everything that moves and is put in this creation, none of that is sacred. I was telling them that. From an Indian point of view, I have to tell you quite honestly, but there's one thing that's sacred. There is one thing that is sacred, I tell them. And that one thing that is sacred, it is a little piece of real estate, but it's this piece of real estate, it's distinctive from all these other pieces of real estate, because this little piece of real estate, you can't buy it or sell it or even mortgage it, although people try to do that. But it's not within their jurisdiction to do that. And that little piece of real estate is so small, it's not really measurable, but it's right in here. It's the soil of the human heart. And I always tell them that if you want to do any campaigns whatsoever, people are always into this anti-pollution and things. I was telling them, if you want to do anything in that line, I say, you need to haul a little bit of trash out of here. Try to remove some of the contaminants, toxic waste out of this little piece of environment. And then I tell them, to the extent that you can do that, you will begin to understand by increments, in a minuscule way, the sacredness of this environment right here. And as you begin to understand the sacredness of this environment, and only at that time are you going to be able to look out in this creation out here and to see how every atom and molecule is ordained as a mirror reflecting the sacredness of the hand of its creator. You see. But until you can do that, it doesn't matter to me. You can go out and pollute everything you want out there because it's not going to make a difference. So that's why they never invite me to talk, you know. Really kind of an event. But because that's not what they want to hear. You know? They don't want to hear that. But I honestly believe that. I really do. And that's the message that when I think of the flute, that's really what this instrument is about here. Because it is a hollow reed. And in the Baha'i writings, this is stressed. In fact, there is a prayer from Abdul Baha that says, "O God, make me a hollow reed, through which the pith of self hath been blown. Make me a pure channel, through which thy love may flow to others." And so this is really the center, you see. This is the hollow reed. And we are the ones, of course, to the extent that we can really detach ourselves from those things that would contaminate or and otherwise block that channel, you know, that pith, and causes hollow reed to be, you know, blocked somehow. To the extent that we can detach ourselves from those things, and we know what those are. You know, those are attachments to this material world, which is pretty hard to detach ourselves from. But to the extent we can do that, then we do become that focal point, so that we can potentially manifest all these wonderful qualities. So this is a very, very important, very important point. So I'd like to take these 7 notes and play a song and dedicate it to all of us. And that's really what each of us is. Each of us are the trustees, you might say, of the most precious environment, which really is not part of this earth, as you know. It's the soul that we have as an emanation from the spiritual world of God. It's not ours, really, but it's in our trust. Let me dedicate a song to all of us here. Here tonight. All right, give yourselves. All right, so we've got about 15 minutes here to go through 80 slides, and we're going to go all the way around the world. And I don't know. Really, this takes me such a long time. I started this the other day. My mom and all the people from the community were there. And we started out, and I got through it, the first country, and most of the people left. And then by the time we didn't even get past Miami yet. And by the time we got halfway over the Caribbean, just my mom was left. So, and like they say, and I don't mind repeating it, blessed are the brief, for they shall be invited back again. Anyway, so this is multiculturalism that we're supposed to be focusing on here, and this is really the theme of what has been happening here in the Western Hemisphere for 500 years. This marks the quincentenary, 500 years since the landfall of Columbus. And when Columbus landed, he met a lot of people, and they were mostly from the Arawak and Carib peoples inhabiting all those islands out there in the Caribbean. He tried to enslave them, and he was able to do it for a short term, but they wouldn't stay put. They wouldn't stay there long enough to be enslaved. And so he decided he would try and eliminate them. So he caught quite a few of them and was able to slaughter tens of thousands. But eventually, most of them caught news of that, and they just left. And so they went from island to island, retreating from the Spaniards. And eventually, a lot of the Carib and Arawak went down into what's now northern part of South America. And we went down to Guyana and Suriname. First stop was Suriname, which is formerly Dutch Guyana, which is a fascinating country because it's made up of equal parts of most of the races of mankind. They tried to enslave the Indians there again, but they weren't successful. They just went off into the interior. So then the Dutch imported a lot of African people, but the African people staged in Western Hemisphere, the only really successful revolt, and they all went off into the interior. And they in Suriname, they have a large population there. But they're all throughout the interior. There's really scores of villages of people who retain their village lifestyle from Western Africa, and they have the languages also. Probably many of you have heard of that. It's quite famous. This is the only country in the Western Hemisphere where they really have large population of people who never were really enslaved very long. They escaped, and they don't speak. They see, since the people who came from Africa over here in the slave trading days came from many tribes, as you all know. There were many Ashanti, there were Ga, there were a lot of Wolof, Mandinka, there were Ewe, many different tribes from different languages. But in Suriname, interestingly enough, when they got together, they started putting their languages together so they have a composite language. And then that was unsuccessful. Then they began to bring people in from India. And so there's 30% African, 30% Hindustani, and 30% Javanese. So you can see that, and then in the long run, none of these people stayed in that condition long. So you have this wonderful population in Suriname, and they have their own language. They call it Suriname Tongo, in which they combine elements of all these languages. And it's a really interesting country. And they also have these Arawak and Carib people there. And we got off the plane. They greeted us. This is their head singer. He's from Galipi. He's a Carib, and his family has been singers for generations and generations. These people are really in a precarious situation because they're, this is my mom in the middle, their country is torn, divided. Suriname is divided. And so we were granted permission by the commander of these rebel forces out in the interior to go and visit the interior of Suriname. So the first thing we did was we went in, not this guy, and when we visited Suriname, right there on the left. And he was very happy. We just spent a long time, and he was so happy that we could go in there, and we told him we could try to, as best we could, convey his good feelings and his kind regard and his wishes for reconciliation. And so we had a wonderful visit with him. But we visited some other villages. We were hosted by the local spiritual assembly of this Arawak village. It's called Bernardsdorp. The lady on the right is the chairman of the assembly there, and the one on the left was a translator who translated, and we visited with kids. All the places we went, we visited with kids. Now this is way in the interior. We went to visit. We went through all these roadblocks with all these fellows with their machine guns and everything. They're very, very friendly though. Very friendly. We showed them a letter, and they let us through. The fellow on the left is the chairman of the National Spiritual Assembly of Suriname, and he's also the director of civil aeronautics for the country of Suriname, which it's a real high-ranking position despite the fact that they only have one airplane. Anyway, he's a wonderful guy, and he's a master translator. He's really, the people down there are linguists par excellence. Wonderful. The fellow in the middle is, he is a Carib Indian, and his name is Commander Tomas, and he is the commander of all these rebel forces there. And he's kind of like a Rambo kind of a guy, you know. And we went to his place, and he was just trying to put on airs and everything, but my mom was along, and he just kind of melted there, and she had him right around his little finger. But he is quite a powerful guy. I had to go to the restroom, and I walked in the wrong door, and they had a whole building full of AK-47s and ammunition and everything. And so it is a precarious situation. The real victims, though, are the kids, just like in any situation that you might see in the world today. All of the turmoil that many parts of the world are going through. The real victims are the young people, these children, and it really it's really devastating. It's really devastating, and really this is my whole focus. And I'm so glad that everywhere I go, I get to really spend time with the children. I think this is one of the few opportunities tonight that I'm with adults. I don't mind adults much, but my whole belief is that it's better to build children than repair adults. I really believe that. But you know, they did their best. They made a nice little stage for us. My mom there, she did one of the traditional dances here from North America. It's a jingle dress dance. And there's my mom in the back. And here's a lady from Java. We went to another part of the country, and it was really torn. The country was convulsed by all these political turmoil, but we went out to this village of Galibi, and the people were just really warm, really nice. And this is the first time that they'd ever really heard much about the Baha'i faith. And there's a lot of people, such as this lady, who instantly recognized the truth of the revelation of Baha'u'llah. The lady in the back there, this is my mom in the front. But it's very beautiful. We had we visited with the people there. Like these are, like I said earlier, Carib people. These are of course, you know, the people that Columbus met, and they retained their language and their music and their identity, despite 500 years of being really at the front of pressure. And it was, you know, of course, they have been kept in a state of darkness, you know, because of these 500 years. You know, these 500 years we've put ourselves in awful roles. It's really been terrible when you think of it, you know. And I don't know what people are doing for this quincentennial, but I question it because, you know, we've been putting ourselves in the role of the enslaved and the enslavers, the victims, the victimizers, the oppressed, the oppressors, every kind of role. I don't see how they're able to, these countries are able to glorify very much of that myself. It's a mystery to me. But as a Baha'i, it's very interesting that this whole quincentennial happens to be concurrent with a holy year, which is being commemorated starting next month. For 1 year, the Baha'i world is recognizing this as a holy year, commemorating not only the ascension of the prophet founder of Baha'u'llah, whom Baha'is believe to be the messenger of God for this day, whose revelation, which encompasses some 17,000 tablets, containing the impulse that will bring about, and also the guidance, the spiritual laws and principles to bring about the establishment of the oneness of mankind, commemorating his ascension, the centenary of his ascension, and also the inauguration of the continuation of his covenant. This is a beautiful distinguishing feature of the Baha'i faith, and that the author of the revelation established and made provisions for the continuity, the preservation of his covenant, these incredible forces of his covenant. So we did a program that evening, and we had about 1,500 people come there. And these Arawak and Carib people, we all got together and had a wonderful presentation that evening. Then we went over to Guyana, which is a neighboring country. See, I'm doing pretty good. I covered that whole country there in just about 4 minutes. Okay. All right. Now we got over to Guyana, and we were going out to this little village of Maracaibo, which is an Arawak village, and which is mostly all Baha'i. And we, in order to do so, had to use this Land Rover and go over this real rough terrain. And the engine overheated, and we didn't know we were going to be stranded out there. And up popped this little guy here. He's on the right. This African American gentleman here on the right, and he was just so kind. We told him we needed some water, and he just not far. It was beyond the range of our eyesight, but there's a little depression there in the land, and there's a little creek down there, and that's where his camp was. He was camped down there with an Indian man, and they were loggers. They're loggers down there. Of course, these are the guys that we hear so much about that are depleting the rainforest down there. You know, we see them only in the United States on CNN as these faceless people who are doing all these things, but these are nice people. They have families, and they're being caught up in the throes of this disintegrating forces, this integrative forces, which are really going through the world now. And so when this young man, we told him why we were there, and you know that we were behind. And we told him, he says, of course. He had never heard about that before, but instantly, this is the way it is in those places there. And the rest of the world, Baha'is are so confident, because the people don't have to go through all these intellectual gymnastics like they do in the United States. They can recognize the truth, like I had to go through also. And so he was really a nice guy. We got on our way, we went to Maracaibo. The fellow in the check shirt is the chief of that village. And this is his family there. And he just welcomed us. And we had a wonderful time. We did a little program. This is the Maracaibo River. This is how they travel there. That's my mom there again. And this young man here is doing a handstand in 2 inches of water. No, they were showing off. These little kids are running off full speed off this cliff, and it was just a slope, and they just barely clear the edge of that slope, and right in a certain spot, and it's deep. But if they miss it, they're going to be crippled for life. But they all look pretty healthy, those kids there. And you know, yeah, this is a nice little Arawak girl here. Like I said, these are the people that greeted Columbus. You never hear about him, right? You don't know. His history just kind of leaves us in limbo. We don't know what happened to them. But these are the people all throughout the world that are who have been kept down. You know, the vast majority of the peoples of the world have been kept in the dark. Just like my aunt, she died this past spring, but she used to always harangue us back home. She says, you, and she would always tell us, you're nothing but a bunch of stone-faced Indians. You just sit there, you don't smile, nothing. You know, she's making reference to this quality of Indians of being taciturn, you know, kind of stoic or quiet. Then she never got a rise off of that. But then she would go around, she says, you people, you are not hunkpapa here. Niepi ate che nilakfuta pishnealo. She says, ata ni hunkpapa shnis elecha. She says, you are not Lakhutas here. You are not hunkpapas. The tribe that you belong to, you're all mushroom Indians. She was trying to say. You are all mushroom Indians. And she says, you've been kept in the dark, you thrive in the dark, and they just feed you nothing but BS. And you thrive on it. That's what she kind of got a rise out of the people there. But it is true. It is true. And I can maybe deal with that a little bit later. Not the BS, but the darkness. All right. So anyway, this is a fellow. He accompanied us. His name is Guy Marco, and he belongs to the Makushi people. He is from the Amazon basin, and his people are these. You know, I wanted to put faces to these and personalities because you see on CNN and all these things, all these rainforests that are being destroyed, and people are just being wiped out, machine gun and everything, and it just seems hopeless and dismal and everything. But here is a guy who comes from that background, and he recognized in the revelation of Baha'u'llah the light out of the darkness. And he's a consummate master artist, and he uses the themes from the motifs and the design and color elements from his people. And he develops the theme of the light, and the light shining into the darkness and illuminating, and he shows all the patterns of growth. And their people are master weavers, as he is, and he sat down, he just wove a little bag out of palm fronds. And this is the way they cook down there. This is their microwave nucleators that they use down there in South America. Then we went to another part of Guyana, across the river, and this is one of the urban renewal projects that they have in progress down there. But yeah, this is the way most of the people live, you know. This happens to be the family of a Hindustani, the home of a Hindustani family. In their belief, you know, they use these flags to denote prayer offerings that they have made. This is quite comparable to what we do in South Dakota, the traditional teachings. You know, when they make prayers, they'll put offerings. We call that wa'uyampi. And this is quite comparable, parallel over there. And this fellow, his family is all behind. He's a very intense person. He just beams, just radiates. And he's very proud of the fact that he has virtually every element of the human family flowing through his veins. He's part German, he's part Indian, part Arawak, he's part African, he's part Hindustani, he's part Javanese, everything. Every possible strain, dominant strain of mankind flows through his genes. And he's happy, proud of it. Very nice. And these are these guys, you know, once again, you go down to the pet store in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and you see the little birdies there, and this is where they come from. And this is the way people subsist out there. You know, there's an Indian man on the right and a Hindustan man on the left there. And this is really the pattern of human society in many parts of the world, especially in different parts of the Western Hemisphere. It's incredible how things are happening. Papakuma Indian, Amerindian Reservation, we went over there. And some shots here. Dugout, just a dugout with a speedboat right beside it. Very interesting. You can't improve on the basic design. And once again, we mostly all just visited with these children everywhere we went. Beautiful children. Here's a lady who had just lived all her life there on the second and this other lady too, the one on the right. The one on in the middle in the blue with the white collar is about 85. She never left that village. She's been there all her life. And she lived through quite some changes in her lifetime. And these are some of the youth, some of the girls. They did a dance performance in the Baha'i Center, newly inaugurated Baha'i Center there in Georgetown. And they do some of the traditional dances there. Very lively. Beautiful. Then on the way back, we stopped back in southern Florida, and this is the chairman of the Seminole tribe of Florida, James Billy, and his newest addition there. And he's a buddy of my mom from way back, and they hammed it up there a little bit. Of course, his people are really going to tumult, you know, the Seminole, the Miccosukee were the United States fought 3 wars against them, and they experienced bitter defeat at the hands of Osceola and all of the different chiefs down there. It was the most expensive war per capita fought by the United States government, and they were unsuccessful in removing all of them from there. And there's still one group called the Miccosukee, who number about 600, way down further south, who really, they don't even like to send their kids to school, because the older people actually beg the younger people not to send their kids to school, because when they were younger, of course, Miami just grew up overnight. So they're very scared. They say that, you know, just as fast as this material civilization has appeared, they say it will vanish. This is what the older people down there say, it will vanish. And if the younger generation are standing over there with them, they're going to share that fate. You can hardly blame them for that position. You know, you look at places like Miami and places like that are really decadent places in the aggregate, although there's bright spots in there, of course, as anywhere. But this is once again the time that we're in, the forces, the disintegrative and integrative forces. And there's no group of people that's spared from this double-edged sword moving through humanity now. Just briefly, like, this is another place. I went down to South Pacific a couple months ago, and this is a family from Minnesota I stayed with over there. This is in Palau, and the dominant theme, this is the community center in Koror, Palau. The dominant motif that they have is so many people through the world have is the tree of life. This is a dark, but it depicts this tree of life, which is a very dominant theme throughout North America. In fact, the symbol of the United States, the eagle, was taken in part from in fact, the symbol of Canada is the leaf on the tree of life. And the United States has the eagle. So they kind of got it reversed, but these are universal archetypes that pervade all of humanity. Even the Eskimo of Greenland, who have never seen any vegetation over 6 inches in height for a time span of about 4,000 years now, have in their oral traditions graphic remembrances and stories invoking this universal archetype of the tree of life. And it's so interesting because, of course, Baha'u'llah equates his revelation, his personage as the tree of life, the tree of life. So it's very interesting that all peoples are endowed with the capacity to recognize this vast, sublime revelation. Once again, I saw all the kids there, all of them. That's what I get to do everywhere. It's great. All these little, and also some of the older people there. Beautiful elders. These elders had gone through a lot. You know, the Palauans were conquered by the British, conquered by the Spaniards, conquered by the Germans. The Japanese took over. They were gonna kill all of the Palauans, and they were busy doing that. And then suddenly one of the generals says, "Hey, we can make slaves out of them." So they did that. And so a lot of these people speak Palauan and Japanese, these older people. And after I got done there, they all came up and gave me a gift. And one person was apologizing. He says, no, that's what the people do in South Dakota too. Same thing. And they also put these little flower, they call them leis in Hawaii, but they call them nunus down there. This is a little village of Nardmau on the island of Babaldak. They're in Palau. And it's the closest thing to paradise. I've been to 45 countries, but that was the closest thing there. And this little village is about 85% Baha'i. But they kind of had gotten lax in what they've been doing there, with the youth have been doing. They've been doing this 9-day deepening, intensive deepening. They go out on this remote island and they just deepen like on the hidden words and other writings of Baha'u'llah. And when I got there, it was just incredible to see these youth. They're just glowing. It's just unbelievable. Their custom is to put these flowers, and I was so upset because I'd have these flowers, they'd be so beautiful and fresh, and within minutes or even maybe an hour, they'd begin to wilt. I thought, my gosh, they spend hours making these, but they wilt. But that's really not the point. It's the point that this is a token of their regard, and that they plant these flowers of friendship. It's a spiritual token or symbol that freshness, that life, that beauty, that color will always be fresh and never fade. So these are these youth here, really wonderful youth. We went out hiking there. This is the fellow on the left, his name is L.Y. He just spent 2 years in the Holy Land, serving at the Baha'i World Center. And the fellow on the right is the principal of the school there in Nardmau. He's also on the National Spiritual Assembly of the Western Caroline Islands. And he's gone to Haifa several times, to the shrines of Baha'u'llah and the Bab. And they're very beautiful people there. Incredible. We went out way up in the mountains. We went up to these waterfalls up there. We went swimming in the waterfalls, these youth there. And it was just really something, really beautiful. Many waterfalls up in there. We went around to the top of that waterfall, looked down, and then back up the other side. It's just the river was going way up back into the mountains, and these are some of these youth there that we accompanied. And they have the habit of chewing these betel nuts. My kids, they like to watch that movie Beetlejuice. It's kind of a crazy movie. I never could figure it out, but their teeth down there, they look like that character Beetlejuice. And those little fuzzy things just over his head there, that's the betel nut. And they climb right up those trees, and straight up those betel nut trees. They just put their hand on them, and they just walk right up those trees. It's just unbelievable. Going up like 70, 80 feet straight up there. And they just walk right back down again. I want to die and try that. This is one of the little kids there. They wear these traditional thu. It's called a thu. And the people of Palau, and then to a lesser extent, but Yap, which was another place I went, they're consummate navigators. They can navigate, and they can go in the oceans there, and they, for all these countless generations, they've studied the currents, and so the head navigator of each of the outrigger, if there's a fleet of outriggers, the head navigator is a person who is so intimate with the currents that he can just navigate with his foot in the water, and he can just feel the current and the temperature, and he can determine where in the ocean they are, because of course the currents deflect as they move past islands and archipelagos, and they know those so intimately that they can really determine exactly where they are by that method. And I went out fishing with some of the fellows there. We went out in the open ocean. It was just incredible. I caught a little barracuda, maybe 3 feet. It was small, but I guess you call it a barracudette. But it was just so incredible to be out in the open ocean. And I was thinking to myself, in the writings of Baha'u'llah, the metaphor of the ocean is invoked so frequently, even in the obligatory prayer we ask in the opening line that our prayer could be made could be a light that will lead us into the ocean of the presence of God. And there's so many passages, innumerable passages where the ocean of mercy, the ocean of forgiveness, it's so, the ocean is such a powerful metaphor. And I realized down there that living out in the middle of the prairies, I don't know what the ocean is. I don't have a clue. These people do, and I began to realize how we all have these wonderful gifts that we can bring with us as we come into this beautiful global civilization, and these beautiful insights, and how much these people can contribute with their knowledge. And I thought to myself, up here, the American Indian people, everything, our art, all of our civilization is really equated with the appearance of spring. And this is a very powerful metaphor in the revelation of Baha'u'llah. I realized these people don't understand spring, so I thought, how am I going to tell them about spring? And I thought, well, first I have to tell them about winter. They don't know winter, so I told them, winter, like this was last January, I told them back where I live now, we have a huge river outside my home. It's the Missouri River, but you can just drive right over the top of it because the ice is so thick. And what happens in the winter is that the earth turns away from the source of light and heat, and it becomes dark. The world becomes dark, and it becomes lifeless and cold, and all the waters are locked up in this darkness and rigidity. And I was telling them that when the spring begins to happen, the earth moves back towards the source of its light and heat. And as it does so, by increments, the temperature of the earth warms until it reaches a stage which is identified as 32 Fahrenheit, 0 Celsius. And as it begins to rise above that, a miraculous thing happens. The darkness becomes vanquished, and the light begins to become ascendant, and the waters begin to thaw, and everything that was rigid and lifeless begins to fade back, and slowly spring begins to make its signs. At first you can't tell, like right outside now, you can look out and you see the snow, and you were just a casual observer just going by, you would think, wow, this is like winter now. But this is where the world is now, today. I was telling them, the soil of the heart of humanity now is insensibly being moved towards a source of light and heat. And the lifelessness and the darkness which has typified and pervaded the human heart and their behaviors for all these generations is fading away. But in the process, just like in the spring, there's this tumult, there's consternation, there's confusion. It's like when we were driving the other day, it was kind of a warm day. All these cars were in the ditch and they were all mired in the mud. This is the way the world is. We're so mired in the mud and the darkness and the old ways of thinking, just like the adult, so many of them. And so we feel that we're in this, and this is the way it should be in the world, this darkness. But really, the world is moving towards the light. We have no recourse, no alternative. And so everything that is rigid and dark and lifeless is going to fade away. We can't go back into the winter now. We have to go into the spring. There's no choice now. And the source of that light and the heat is the forces of the revelation of Baha'u'llah now. So it's exciting to be alive. It's the most exciting time in human history to be alive. Well, just briefly, I kind of been lying to you. I'm not really that brief, but I'm doing admirably well, such as it is, considering myself, So then this is a couple of years ago, went to China. I had the great fortune of accompanying a distinguished personage in the Baha'i world by the name of Ruhia Khanum for 3 weeks in China. It was just incredible. And we went to, this is my daughter, she's 17. This is the Missa Flight recipient here. They call this Chinglish. little bit of Chinglish there. They have their own way of speaking English in China. It's very nice. But, we went to like different places. It was just unbelievable. Here's a city of 14 million people called Chongqing. Anybody ever heard of Chongqing? With 14 million people, and I had never heard of it before in my life. But this is where the best food in the world comes from. Ever heard of Sichuan? Sichuan food. This is it. This is heaven. And once again, we got to see a lot of kids, beautiful kids. They're only allowed to have one child, and they spoil them rotten. But the schools are very disciplined. Here's some of the folks in our little group there. I don't have any pictures of you yet on in here. No, I don't take pictures. I have to borrow and steal pictures from all different places. There's some of the girls there. That's my daughter, she's in the black. We did dance program, a lot of different dances. She's a good dancer. We went to tribal areas. This is a lady from a Buyi tribe, the one on the left. And she did all this silk embroidery. Just beautiful, wonderful. And of course they had vanished religion there. And so these old Buddhist shrines are falling into disrepair. This is kind of a relic from the past. But the Chinese people are very spiritual, and they, in the writings of Abdul Baha, they're described as the country of the future. And you can really see it as they begin to come into the light. And it's just incredible, the energy and the dynamism of the people of China. I was standing in our hotel room in these mountains, which are very beautiful there. This is in the Guiyang province. There's many pictures of these mountains, distinctive mountains. And I was standing there, and I saw this bird coming from the mountains, and it began to come right up close to the hotel where I was, and it was circled around, and here it looked like an eagle. And a lot of you, last night, I can tell eagles now. I know how to distinguish eagles. And the shape of the wings and the tail, the way the tail fans, I know it was something akin to an eagle. I don't know what they have in China. And I went back into the mountains, and I thought of the ascendancy of the people of China and the Greek future. And this is a little couple of slides here. Here's my boy. We went up into the Arctic of Siberia, not really Siberia, but around Murmansk. And those that are Sami people, they're reindeer herders up there. And this was about 4 years ago. It was the first open proclamation of the Baha'i faith in the Soviet Union, and I was on that trip. It was a historical thing. It was great. It was in Murmansk, which is the city about 400 miles north of the Arctic Circle, of 600,000 people. It's the base of the then Soviet submarine fleet, and also the base of the Air Force that carries the nuclear warheads that are positioned to go right over the ice cap into targets in the Western Europe and into the Western Hemisphere. But we went there, and even in this place, it was so incredible. We had this little Baha'i information booth, and when we got to this border of the Soviet Union, we drove in to Murmansk. It's a long way on a dirt road, hadn't been used, and we had 20,000 pieces of Baha'i literature, which had been procured at great toil by the friends, by the Baha'is there in Scandinavia from the German National Spiritual Assembly. And when we got to the Soviet border, they confiscated all but about 90 pieces of literature. And so we went on, undaunted, and when we got there, it was just incredible. This is around the city. These are the deteriorating signs of the old Soviet regime. But anyway, this is the little group that we went with there. Kind of a nice group. The fellow all the way on the left, he's married to one of the Sami women up there in northern Sweden, and he's a Cayuga Indian from Six Nations Reserve at Brantford, Ontario. And I asked him, "What are you doing here?" And he asked me, "What are you doing here?" Same kind of a thing, but he's up there, and we all went over, and when we got there, it was just incredible. This Baha'i information booth was just besieged. We had people in line going back half a mile to get up to read the one copy of the hidden words that we had in Russian, the Cyrillic alphabet. And they would take turns. Each of them would come and they would write passages of the hidden words, and they would all get back together and they would they made their own books there. We had, like I said, we had 30,000 people come by there. People would stand and they would just read the writings, and they would cry, and this most animated discussion. They would beg us to tell us about this message, just beg us. And I was so frustrated because this lady here on the right, who's a Persian lady, who was born in Ishkabad and could speak Russian from her childhood, but it was rather limited, her Russian. And the other fellow who was from Alberta and is a Dukabor who speaks Russian, but it's a different kind of Russian because his people immigrated to Canada a couple of generations ago. So here we had these two people who could speak faltering Russian, and they were just begging us to tell us about the revelation of Baha'u'llah, and we couldn't do it. And I was thinking, my gosh, I could go back to Bismarck or anywhere back home, and I could set up a comparable kind of a information booth. And I was just wondering how many people would be coming there, clamoring to get the information. And I was thinking, I could even talk to the people probably in Bismarck, most of them speak English there. And here, they were all coming to me and I couldn't even talk to them. It was quite awkward. It was just incredible. This is what's typifying the movement, what's happening in those areas now. It's so clear, we can see we are moving into the light. It's very beautiful. And so this is why all over the world the Baha'is have such confidence, because they've tried virtually everything. Everything has been tried. Every type of solution to the ills of humanity have been tried, whether it's political or racial or social or economic. And everything has failed in the long run. And so the one solution that has not been tried is the solution of Baha'u'llah. Anyway, this is the last slide. You're just all breathing a sigh of relief. This is about 4 or 5 years ago. My little daughter, who's now 9, she's about 4 or 5 at that time. And she did a little drawing there, and she showed it to me. And I asked her what that meant, what this drawing meant. And she just kind of looked at me, and the look that a lot of these kids give me. I go to a lot of schools in South Dakota. I noticed, and I don't know if the kids are that way everywhere. I never really found that out. But I noticed that these little kind of like kindergartners and first graders, when they do drawings, it can be blizzarding out. And I remember many times I've gone to schools and the blizzard's too heavily, they'll bring all those little tiny guys in and they'll just put paper out and a box of crayons and they'll start drawing. And I noticed time and again, these themes that typify the drawings, they'll draw these beautiful pictures of just green fields and always have a bright yellow sun and a blue sky. And there might be a big heart somewhere in the middle, kind of disembodied heart somewhere in there. And but they'll have like little flowers, and there'll be rainbows and birds. Do kids around here do that too? I don't know. I don't know. But I noticed that. And one time I was really bothered by it, and I went around and I thought these kids had a conspiracy going on because I couldn't figure it out. I looked around and here it was blizzarding outside. I looked on the walls. Here was George Washington here and Abe Lincoln over on the other side. So I asked these little kids. I says, I don't understand. What do you have here? What is this drawing that you are making here? Where did you see this? Where is this place that you're drawing? Where is this? And they all give me the same look, just like my daughter did and still does. And that look, it's very poignant and it's very descriptive and it's very precise because the look says, without non-verbally, it says, this dummy really doesn't know, does he? And I didn't, and I still really don't. But the scene, I began to realize, the scene these little kids are describing, it is a real place, and in fact, much more real than any environment that they might see, because the environment that they are describing is right in here. It's right in the soil of the human heart. And it's so clear as I read the writings of Baha'u'llah, this environment, it's so clear. It's like, I feel I'm so stupid. How could I fail to see this? Right in the hidden words, it's all in there. In the first hidden word, remember, it says, O son of spirit, my first counsel is this: possess a pure, kindly, and radiant heart, that thine may be a sovereignty ancient, imperishable, and everlasting. These little guys here, you give them a little paper and crayons, and what are they going to draw? They're going to describe the scene. That scene, you're not going to see that. It is real, though, it's in here. It's right in the heart. And to me, when I look at it, it tells me something very clear. It tells me how beautiful it is. This beautiful trust that we all have, which, like we say, it doesn't originate in this earth. It's an emanation from the spiritual world of God. And yet we so encumber it and attach it to this material world. And so that and attach it so much that it becomes like it's wedded to this material world. And the offspring of that union is so unworthy of it. Every time I turn on the TV, people are so consumed in quick fixes, in the perfect look, the perfect diet. How do they eliminate these addictions, sexual addictions, chemical addictions, everything? This is this child that is given birth to when we attach this precious human spirit to the things of this earth. It produces materialism. I don't care what you want to call it. But these little children, hasn't happened yet for the most part. Many of them, they are consumed by that at an early age. But when I look at that, I see these beautiful flowers, and they do their drawings, and I think to myself, this is a very clear message. How could I be so dumb to ignore it? If we want to have flowers or a garden growing out in South Dakota, we have to think 20 years in advance. We have to plant the shelter belt there. Because otherwise, the first storm or tempest will affect those tender flowers. And so I often wonder to myself, these children, I think they're asking for this. They want to have a shelter belt there. They want to have a tree of trustworthiness, a tree of uprightness, a tree of moral rectitude, a tree of honesty, a tree of compassion. And who and where is the adult that can do that for them? That's what I want to find out. This is also in that look that they give. Well, my little girl did this drawing, and then I asked her, what does that mean? Well, I really don't know. But this is one of the most pervasive archetypes in the world, the hoop of life. And you see that in the Lakota people, what they do is that they divide that hoop of life into 4 quadrants. To each one of those is the color. And they also say that there's a red, there's a different color of humanity assigned to every quarter of this universe. And so I don't know, I never told my daughter that. This is one of the oldest teachings of the Lakota. But she did that drawing. I was quite interested. She showed all the different people of humanity there. And then, you know, I was thinking about that too, because I took my daughter to see Dances with Wolves, you know. And then we came out. I said, how did you like that? He said, that's okay, Dad, but I'm still a dinosaur. Because you see, that movie, it does do something, you know. It helps people in the United States who have been in such a terrible predicament for 500 years of putting ourselves in terrible roles, and the weight of that is inflicting damage on our psyche. So Kevin Costner, recognizing that, probably did a service to help people process that in the, in the aggregate, the white people ended up being subhuman in that movie. I don't know, Timmy, I don't really know. But I thought it was beautiful. They shot that just over the hill from where I live. My neighbor, Mr. Houck, has got all those buffalo just over there. They asked me if I wanted to be in that movie. I said, no way. They wanted me to teach Kevin Costner how to dance, and especially I'm thankful I didn't do that if you ever saw him dance in that movie. Yeah. But every morning I wake up, I say, thank God I wasn't in that movie, because I would be forever associated with it. And my message is the opposite message. Because to me, right now, not 100 years ago, all those people from 100 years ago, I know their grandchildren. And they left. They gave many things. They all went to their grave brokenhearted because they knew they had all failed. They felt the forces surging, which as Baha'is we know were released in this ocean of revelation that was released by Baha'u'llah into this world. And they felt that, and they arose. But in the long run, they were brought down. And our world ended over 100 years ago. For many people who have come to the United States, they have experienced a continuity. But for my people back home, our world ended 100 years ago. And so today, it's so clear to see that today is a day when we can have real heroes. For 500 years, they've been fighting and putting themselves in terrible roles in order to gain ascendancy over this earth up here. But today is a day when we can really do some wonderful things, because now is the day when this most precious little piece of real estate is going to attain its efflorescence, its fulfillment right here. This is the day when the city of men's hearts will be unlocked. In the springtime, we were talking about everything that was dark and locked up is moving, and the soil, the heart of humanity is thawing very slowly. But soon it will gush, and these waters will be released, and all this beauty will come out. And in that design that my little girl is trying to describe here, we all have a role in there. I was trying to tell these little children out in these remote islands in the Pacific, they have the same feeling of being invisible down there too. Of course, they've been conquered and put down for so long. And I was telling them, you may think that you're nothing down here. The kids think that way where I live too. They think the world's out there and we're here, remote on the reservation. You're remote out in these islands in the middle of the ocean. They don't care about you. You're insignificant. You're nothing. You're backwater people. But I told them this is not the day for that now. Baha'u'llah has drawn the circle of unity. And in a circle, you don't have any corners. There's no dark places to hide. You all stand shoulder to shoulder. This is the way it is. My little daughter drew this here. And she was thinking, I thought maybe, she put that little line there, and there's an eagle feather up there in the corner. And she was thinking, I don't know, she never did really tell me, but I was asking her if this was something, the reason why, and she said, Dad, you're catching on. You're catching on now, she said. There is a people in the Western Hemisphere who have always been at the bottom. And that is the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere. And every group of people has a place in this circle of unity now, in which this feather has always represented distinction. The eagle represents the ascendant attributes that we can attain. The wing of the intellect, the wing of the spirit, the wing of the male, the wing of the female, the wing of material advancement, and the wing of spiritual advancement. And this represents distinction. And my daughter desires distinction, not dominance, but to have a place. We all have our place now. And that place is to stand shoulder to shoulder with everybody in this great group now. And this is the best multicultural perspective that I could give you tonight is to show you this picture right here. And this is what I understand from looking in the eyes of all these different children all over. So I would like to thank you all very much for your kindly indulging me and not walking out in mass. Thank you very much. Madam Chairman, where are you? Where art thou?